Hey everybody, what's up? This is Nick.
And this is Nate.
And today we're going to be talking about The Suicide Squad. Not Suicide Squad. Those guys suck. But The Suicide Squad, they're pretty cool.
Yes, I have javelin. We're cool, and I can take body parts off and tickle you with them.
Let's talk. This is going to be really hard to not talk spoilers. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a very, very general what we thought about it, and then we're going to go right into spoilers. So you might only be watching this for 2 minutes, and then you need to stop watching until you watch the movie. So, and I apologize for the kids in the background. You know, I'm a father. So get over it. All right. So what are your general thoughts on Suicide Squad?
Man, what a way to take the characters off of the comic book and put them in live action. I honestly felt like I was watching a lot like the Assault on Arkham animated Suicide Squad film. This is what that felt like. And everything about it, from how imposing Amanda Waller was, how it's now. As much as I love this movie, I will say it is a James Gunn ass movie. So it's kind of one of those. It's a weird cinematic feeling where it's like I can't not. It's kind of like when you watch a movie that you see, like for example, Jumper is the main thing. It's like you have Anakin Skywalker is the main character, and it's kind of hard to take that out. So it's like it's kind of hard for me to take this out of viewing as a James Gunn film because I know it's so much. But man. Oh, God, what this is the movie I think we should have gotten years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there'll always be that kind of thing in the back of my head that will just kind of wonder, what if we would have gotten the original Suicide Squad? You know, the one where the Joker was the main villain versus Giant Skybeam. You know, because I have always been kind of a defender of the David Ayer Suicide Squad, and more to the point that it was an okay film. I will never die on the I'll never die on the hill where I'm like, it's a masterpiece, but I definitely will die on the hill where it's it's not as bad as everybody says it is, and that I actually really enjoyed most of it, you know. But yeah, Giant Skybeam, the villain, and the overall story structure, it sucked ass or whatever, and I more just enjoyed the characters and things like that. And in this one, I love pretty much everything about it. You know, like I said, it is kind of hard to talk without talking spoilers, so it's that's all I can really say is that it's a really good comic book movie. And I do like how it can ground itself enough in real life, but also feel like an actual comic book movie. You know, I guess what would be the closest example? I guess Thor Ragnarok still felt like it was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it was able to go in these in this really crazy direction with rock people and a bug that has a little mech suit, and it was able to do this because we had been established enough. Whereas this is kind of its first go around, but it's also not, you know. But yeah, so I mean, I really like it. I felt like everybody did a really good job. Because that's definitely one thing you could say about Suicide Squad, is that Will Smith and Margot Robbie were the standouts, and everybody else was just kind of filler. Whereas I believe this one, they really rounded out the main cast, and everybody felt like they had their moment to shine, or they had just purpose, and it felt really good, you know. And you definitely couldn't say that about the other one. You know, And so, from a story structure way, I do believe that it was really well done. Definitely a little bit of pacing issues, but not enough to ruin the overall experience. And so, I think that's the most important part, is that while there might be some negatives, I feel like the positives far, far outweigh the negatives. So, yeah. So if I had to say it right now, we both watched it on HBO Max. I mean,
Correct.
that's a really good way to do it. Here's the thing, okay? This will be a really good question. Do you think it would be good in theaters?
1000%. That's
Yeah.
what I was just about to say. It's like
Yeah.
the only other critique I can give it is what, like, there is something about watching a brand new movie
Mm-hmm.
at home that somehow still makes it feel like you're watching a streaming movie. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it makes the quality of the movie feel lesser.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
could
really sure
I
why.
could sort of understand what you mean.
Because there was part of where I was watching, honestly, during the low moments where I was like, oh, this is like a streaming movie, kind of, you know.
Yeah,
but
okay, yeah.
if you have the option to see this in IMAX, fucking do it 100%.
I don't know about IMAX because that's just
Well, in
so
the
much,
theaters, just
so
in
much
general.
more. Yeah,
Depending
that's
on
so
your
much more
market.
money. But in theaters, yeah, like I think if I would have seen this in theaters, I wouldn't have regretted the ticket purchase.
Anything, right? Yeah.
And that's definitely, I mean, especially nowadays when there isn't that much to watch in theaters, that's a good merit. So there you go. Go watch it in theaters if you have a chance. You know, if you just don't have the money, then by all means, at least watch it on HBO Max. It's a great movie. So there you go. Those are all your non-spoilery review. So we're going to give you 10 seconds to go watch the movie and then come back. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone fucking dies.
Shout! Hold on. Shout the fuck out to the unsung hero of this movie, fucking Weasel. I was like, so the when they're in the plane and he's just like, he's like, is this a dog? And like he starts like just being chittering and I'm like, I love how fucking animated they made him.
Mhm.
And then whenever they threw him in the water and he's freaking out and they were like, did anyone check to see if he could swim? And then you know, fast forward, I was like, oh, okay, he's dead. Like I was like, that makes sense.
Right.
The very fucking end of the movie, he's just like, he starts running off. I'm like,
Right.
oh my god, I love this fucking character.
Well,
Yeah.
I definitely wish we would have gotten more of him because it was
Yeah.
kind of weird. As soon as that happened, I feel like it definitely set the tone for the movie because it's like, okay, literally anything could happen.
Yeah.
But then unfortunately, that entire team, like Team B or whatever, died. And like as soon as Weasel died, I'm like, oh, okay, is everyone gonna die? Because I happen to notice that I don't see Deathstroke. Or not Deathstroke. What the fuck is his name?
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport. I don't see Bloodsport. I don't see the Shark. I don't see the Rat Person. I don't see John Cena. So I'm like, okay, all these motherfuckers are gonna die except for Harley and Flag. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and then sure enough, they all start dying. So first it was Weasel, which I don't know why. This might be just nitpicky of me, but like the guy literally didn't even try CPR or anything, even just bang on his chest a couple of times. He's like, yep, the Weasel's dead. And that's it. Like, I know, like, obviously, like, they could have made, like, a funny little scene, like, you know, try to give it, I'm not putting my mouth on that. Like, they could have made a funny scene like that. But instead, they're just like, yeah, it's dead. And I'm like, okay, that's how the scene is going to go. So first it was him. Then it was the orange lady. Then it was the
Javelin, I think.
toothpick guy. Then it was the detachable guy, which I do love how, like, first they were shooting his arms. He's like, oh, my arms. He's like on the ground. Ow, my arms. So I love that part. And then, like, Captain Boomerang, like, dear God.
That was
Who's the guy who plays him, like, something Chive?
Jai Courtney.
Jai Courtney. Jai Courtney, like, he does a great job. Okay, and I think personally, any movie that he's in, he is a person who does a good job.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's just in a lot of bad movies. You know what I mean? Like, a really good example would be, like, the Die Hard, Live Free, Die... No, that's not what it is. What's the last one?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I saw that one.
Yeah, anyway, the one where they're in fucking Russia or whatever. He did good, but I think the problem is that it was a Die Hard movie.
Yeah, well, it was a bad Die Hard.
Well, no. I even think that if it didn't have the weight of Die Hard and John McClane and yada yada, I think it would have been a passable action movie. But the fact that it's John McClane, that's the problem. It wasn't him. It wasn't even Bruce Willis barely doing anything in the movie. It was the fact that it was a Die Hard movie and there was that expectation. And then he was in the one with Tom Cruise. Oh,
Jack Reacher.
Yes, there you go, Jack Reacher, and he was kind of the villain or whatever. He was like the main villain, and he was very imposing. You know what I mean? So like, I like him, and to agree to come back onto a movie that was critically panned, just to die, like
when he got on the plane and they really kind of showed the shot of him, like, you know, a static shot of him. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's gonna die soon. I just knew it because like he hadn't been a big advertised character. Like he wasn't everywhere. Like I feel like we saw more Mongol than we did Boomerang.
Right, and so that was kind of the problem with killing Weasel so quickly, is that I was like, oh, everyone's dead, and it made it way too obvious. And this is a common thing. Let me know if you agree. This is a common thing throughout the entire movie, is that by doing the quote-unquote unexpected, I expected way too much. There were so many things where they were trying to subvert my expectations, but by trying to do that, by trying to make the movie so unexpected, I expected the unexpected, so it looped back around to being totally expectable.
Right.
For me.
Which, and here's the thing, excuse me, I haven't had coffee yet. When it comes to that scene, I was a little like, oh, okay, everyone's dying. I was like, okay. And then when they showed basically Team A on the other side, it's like, Waller, how did you do it? They're all distracted. I'm like, you clever bitch. You used an entire team as fucking cannon fodder. Mm-hmm. And that made me, I feel like if that scene, if they wouldn't have had that line at the end, it would have made that previous scene weaker. But I feel like when they come onto the beach and he's like, Waller, how'd you do it? And there's like a pause. I'm like, oh, because I'm like, oh, that's because and that's the thing with Amanda Waller. I think James Gunn did a really good fucking job with portraying her as this, like, because they did sort of in the Suicide Squad by her just murking every single person that was working in that safe room with her. But this one, they're straight up like, hey, there's a giant kaiju, and we're gonna go help it. No, you're not.
Yeah,
I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, and see, that was one of those moments that was completely expectable, because like she was going way too off the handle. Like I really feel like they should have reined her back a little. You motherfuckers! You pieces of shit! Like drool coming from her, which not literally, but like that's what it was like. She was a rabid fucking dog, and I really feel like they should have reined that performance in a little bit, because it was so fucking obvious that somebody, I don't know who, but somebody was gonna knock her the fuck out. Like they couldn't kill literally the rest of the Suicide Squad and end it right there. So it was just too fucking obvious. And that's my only, like, that's not my only complaint. I have one other complaint. But out of my two complaints, that's my number one, is that by trying to make it so unpredictable, it made it predictable. Because it's like, yeah, they're not going to kill him. So it's like her just going off the fucking, it was too much. And if anything, I do feel like to a certain extent that was out of character. Because of how, like, she has always, like, Bloodsport literally went up to her with the pin, and she was just like, yeah, okay. Stand down, everybody. Like,
Well, right. So, and that is kind of the biggest problem, especially with the last interpretation we got of her. It was that it was a lot more muted and seeming to be like this version of the character is a little bit is more reined in. I liked her going off the rails because
Yeah.
and have you've seen Assault on Arkham, right?
No.
The animated?
No.
Okay. So in the comics and especially in the animated, Amanda Waller is quite literally Kingpin. Is it Kingpin in the Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
Is that Kingpin?
Yeah.
Okay, quite literally Kingpin, but larger. Like she is this gigantic, quite literal character and this imposing figure who's like, when they do in the animated movie, when they show her, it's like the camera pointed up at her from lower frame. And so it makes it even more imposing. So she's like this monster. So that totally fit. Like if you watch that, I think you'll kind of see what I mean, but
Right.
it fit for that. I can get what you're saying. It's like you can tell with the tone, like with the music, like something was about to happen. So it's like, but I loved how they recovered from that, where everyone's like, "Oh fuck," and they're like, "Get your asses together," and they just start randomly helping the Suicide Squad.
Right. So, I mean, I think the best thing that they did do was like the action sequences, because once everybody died or whatever, it did become about this central group. It was the Shark, the Rat, Deathstroke. I don't care. That's his name.
Okay.
Peacekeeper.
I need you to not talk shit about Bloodsport, please, because they basically here's the problem.
Okay, so is his special power that he's able to like make guns out of it, or is that technology? Because earlier Harley Quinn talked about how they're the only normal people on the thing, but that was Team B. So it's like, is he super powered, or is he just like Bloodsport where he's good with guns?
Are you talking about Deadshot?
Deadshot? I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, you got Deadshot, who is Will Smith, and then Bloodsport here. Bloodsport as a character, I do not know much about in the comics. Based on what I can tell from the interpretation here, is he does have the assassin ability as far as like he is extreme. Well, Deadshot's whole thing is he doesn't miss. With Bloodsport, he can literally use anything as a weapon, and I like how they played that joke with Peacemaker too. But it's that honed skill with his, I think, technological skill as well. Because shout out to every two things that I love, which shout out to James Gunn, because he does a really good job in his filmmaking of like camera focus on certain things. So the fact that he could just take pieces of his armor off and that was his weapons, it was like, okay, here's this like handgun. Oh, I combine three of them together. It's this giant rifle. It was like, I was like, this is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
But at the very end, whenever they're getting surrounded and he's like, oh, I've used all my pieces. It's like, that is also cool. It's like, I am out of, but it's unfortunately they have framed this to where we can't do anything but compare. It's literally like James Gunn went, hey, David Ayer, I like your main lead character, Deadshot. Bloodsport, this one that's completely unknown, that you fucked up with a really popular character. Yeah, hold my beer. Watch this. Because, I mean, Idris Elba knocked it out of the fucking park. I love Idris Elba in this movie.
Yeah, really good. So I everything ran pretty standard in the movie. So standard that they're taking a ride in a van, and this is the other negative that I'd have to say, is that like these character moments felt too much like character moments. It felt like, okay, everybody, now's the time where we have to talk. And like, while I liked the connection with Ratcatcher 2 and Bloodsport, while I liked that connection, while I liked that they became closer as a team, it felt so manufactured. The very next scene where they're in the bar and they're having fun and they're drinking, he's like, oh, okay, just one drink. Oh, you're going to be that guy? You're going to be that? Yeah, just one drink. Like, it would have made way more sense to have a moment where they're like, oh, yeah, my dad, blah, 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 blah. But to have it so heavy-handed and so manufactured. Like I didn't like that part, and that's the only other negative is that it's just like, okay, when they have these super manufactured, super low points, it's like it seems like instead of making that organically through either the action or the story, it's like, okay, everybody, we have this checklist that we have to check off. Let's check off the characters getting closer montage, or not montage, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, the really the last negative I think I have, and then we'll get on to the positives, because there's way more positives than negative when it comes to this. But again, going back to a James Gunn-ism, I have a really positive one I'll get to in a minute, but the negative that I have that I can notice is the music. He likes to carry his scenes with music in the background, which I do enjoy, but there was a couple different times I'm like, fuck, I get it. Like,
right,
it's
right.
Like there's a couple scenes where it's like, all right, I get this is the thing. Like, I guess there were some moments in the movie where I'm like, okay, I clearly see that this is like Guardians, and I couldn't take myself out of that.
Yeah.
But that's just an unfortunate circumstance of like the media we consume and how invested we are in this. But that being said, the movie the great segue into the positive, when it comes to Suicide Squad 2016, the movie I feel like is entertaining when you're watching it, but when you finish it, it's like, oh, that was empty. Like that meant nothing. Like that was completely it's junk food. Whereas with this, while there was a couple moments in the movie where I'm like, like, you know, kind of slow pacing moments, when it finished, I was like, I'm completely satisfied. I am completely satisfied.
I can see that, yeah.
And I think James Gunn really did capture the essence of what the Suicide Squad is, because fun fact to pay attention to, and if you're still watching and haven't seen it, pay attention to this. Starro really isn't the villain of the movie until the last 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I realized it whenever they did the really like when they did the shoot off between Bloodsport and Peacekeeper, and the bullets were in midair, I saw it and I was like, callbacks. He's really good at fucking callbacks.
Yeah.
The smaller bullets.
Yeah.
But it was at that moment.
Which, yeah, John Cena's turn, that was really good, because even though I guess if anybody was going to portray anybody, it'd be the guy who's been talking about liberty the whole time. But at the same time, I definitely felt like it was a good turn, because now it's like this imposing motherfucker who is kind of just like Bloodsport, but he's like now like the super bad version of Bloodsport, which led to like Flag dying, and I'm just like, wow.
How dramatically he died, and also how much of a good ass character he was in this movie.
Yeah, because like even John Cena, like he didn't like killing him, and like I really believe that, and to pull that off where he killed him and he was just like, shit, I didn't want to do that. Fuck. Now I feel really sad. Like that could have been too cheesy, or it could have been extremely unbelievable, but instead it was completely believable because of just like the way they built up John Cena, the way they built up Flag or whatever. Like it was completely believable, which it needed to be to really have that scene have any impact, because otherwise it was just two dudes throwing their fists at each other. You know, that moment when he gets punctured in the heart, and you could just see it, and John Cena's like, I got you. Damn it.
No. And that's the thing that I was getting at too, is like majority of the movie is the Suicide Squad. And that is what is so perfect about Suicide Squad stories is it's not the mission. It's not the end goal. It's it's these weird ass characters together and what they do together.
Yeah.
And I genuinely loved that when I noticed it, because I'm like, fuck, like I'm sitting here expecting that Starro is going to be the big bad like we had in Suicide Squad 2016, where the Skybeam.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
And the Starro shit, even though it was 20, 30 minutes long, was still great. Like that was I really fucking enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And going back to James Gunn with call outs, the fact that something so insignificant as that goddamn javelin
Mm-hmm.
but yet was so important to the overall story. Is like, and he, if you go back and rewatch it, like every time the javelin's brought up, the camera points at it, like it
Right.
makes sure there's a frame of it, so the viewer's like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that thing. He's showing you it throughout the movie,
Right.
so it could be used to be the thing that basically saves everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But again, another great thing about James Gunn, just getting to the like conclusion of fight with the big bad. It wasn't just, I defeated you. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Like, I'm the fire guy, whatever. Yes, I'm talking shit about Suicide Squad 2016. Whereas with this, it's whenever they framed that shot with the ramp, I was like, oh, I clearly see what's about to happen. She's going to run and she's going to stab him in the eye.
Right.
But then she stabs him in the eye, and it's this beautiful
she goes fucking through it.
The shape of water fucking scene. And then I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then the rats come in. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Right. That was insane. Because I definitely expected her to like do that thing where like you stab it and then you go down or whatever. That's definitely what I expected. But for her to just go through it, I'm just like, what the hell? And then the rats came and I'm just like, okay. And they puncture through the back of it, and I'm like, oh shit, is that supposed to be its brains? Right. And I'm like, that's definitely one thing we haven't mentioned yet. The fact that this is rated R, definitely elevated it. I think being rated R and being able to have those moments like when King Shark literally rips a dude in half or whatever. And it's not even just like he rips him in half. It's so like I hate to say it, but it's like it's so artistic the way he ripped him in half and like slowed down just at the right time, and it's raining and like, oh my god, it was so good.
Yeah, at the beginning when Boomerang threw that boomerang and it went between the two guys and sliced the dude's head off and his fucking head came off, I was like, oh, this kind of movie. Like I knew we were in for a good time.
Yeah,
and
which he got one good scene before he just got splintered to death and then helicoptered.
So the biggest question here that I think we have to make is who is the better mascot? Groot or King Shark?
What?
Who is the better mascot? James Gunn superhero movie mascot, Groot or King Shark? Because I love King Shark.
I love King Shark. Honestly, I love King Shark. And maybe it is because he can say more than I am Groot. But even just as a character, I liked him a lot more because he was pretty much just big dumb guy or whatever.
Yeah.
That moment when those aliens like suddenly like turn on him and start, I'm like, did they just kill King Shark?
No, I was like, we're sitting there the whole time. I was like, no, it's blasphemous. But what's also really great is James Gunn made me care about like whenever you see Sebastian swim through the eye, and we're like, oh, good, Sebastian's okay,
right?
That with the harness. But yeah, King Shark.
I literally so when it first showed Sebastian running up the thing, I'm like, you could kill literally every single goddamn rat, but if they do anything to Sebastian, I hate this fucking movie.
whenever they met the like freedom fighters, and she's like, is the rat waving at me?
Like, yeah, he's trying to explain something to her, and she's just like, hold on, I'm gonna let you finish. Is that rat fucking waving at me?
Like every single thing. Like I love the part whenever they said something, he was like, "See," and they're like, "Oh, great, he's learning Spanish."
And I mean, I'm Groot. You're great. You're a good character or whatever. But I think one of the biggest negatives for me is that like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, he was just a baby through the whole thing, and then Infinity War. What?
Yeah. He's the best. Personally, Baby Groot, I think, is the best version of Groot that we've seen.
Yeah, but and then there was teenage Groot, and he was just kind of like whatever. And I wish we would have gotten back to regular Groot by the end, because like the whole thing in the comics is that as long as there's at least a splinter of him, he regrows. But it taking him so goddamn long to regrow was just like, I think I would have preferred if like at the beginning of Volume 2 he would have been a baby, and at the end he would have been a teenager.
Right.
And that way, so that when we saw him again in Infinity War, he could have been just regular ass Groot again.
Actually, technically he was.
What?
Technically, he was. In the after credits, he's a teenager.
Oh, okay. Well, either way. So
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You knew what I meant. Don't be a smartass. But yeah, just not being able to get back to regular Groot. Like, I like regular Groot because regular Groot had that perfect mix of badass and funny. Like that one part where he's like, like that was perfect. But then he was still able to be like, "Hiya!" and like really good. So I think King Shark wins in the sense of like first off, Sylvester Stallone.
And
The fact that they got Sylvester Stallone and he was just like completely okay with being a fucking doofus. Like, good for him. Like, he knows what's going on. He knows that they're essentially making fun of him in a certain way, but at the same time, he's like willing to be a part of the joke. And I really like that because it's like, yeah, like he has so little dialogue, just like I am Groot, but the fact that like, yeah, he can do something like hand. And that was it. He didn't have a question. He didn't have anything. He just saw somebody else raise their hand, and he wanted to be a part of it.
Well, yeah, resolution. He had the resolution too, because she was like, "Yes, no way. I see your hand." And he was like,
like, I did
it. But and like the same can be said for John Cena. Like, and he even says it in like the I think it's the like behind the scenes. It's like, be a douchey Captain America. Okay, got it. But like the scene that was in the trailer with the fucking the bag of dicks, like he's like, this whole speech was. And he said for liberty, I would say no problem. And it's like they just were like, hey, just be like an asshole and just. But I fucking.
Well, it definitely makes you wonder what got him into jail because obviously somebody asked him to do something, and. You know that whole thing. You know that whole thing that they say sometimes. I think pretty much any spy movie, but like Mission Impossible stands out to me for some reason. But any spy movie, they'll say basically, if you're caught, we'll disavow you. Right. So I think that's what happened. Is that he did some fucked up shit because he even said he would kill like children if it meant liberty. So he did something fucked up, and they're just like, "What? We didn't send him on that mission."
Which makes total sense because. Where does this motherfucker get his weapons from? Like, there were so many times in this movie, Bloodsport, literally, you can see him go, I take it off my chest. Here it is. At one point, fucking, what's his name? Peacekeeper brought out a sword. I'm like, where the fuck did that come from?
Right. And because before he was using an axe.
Yeah, he was using the tomahawk. And oh my God, it is literally my favorite scene. I couldn't stop thinking about it last night. When they were walking through and killing all the freedom fighters who they didn't know were freedom fighters, which was really great when they fucking opened the curtain and it's flag and he goes, is that tea? And they were like, why didn't my men alert me? And they were like, we did. They were all sleeping. We didn't see any men. John Cena's just going by and this dude's just sleeping. And he just goes, chop, 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 and like just chops him up as he's like walking past. And it's like, it's so brutally violent for no reason.
Yeah. That whole scene was great. I think every time there was some action, every time there was, I thought it was done really well. Like, okay, so who is your favorite?
Ooh,
like if you had to put King Shark out of the running, who's your favorite?
Okay, I'll give you my top three. Okay. My top three are definitely Bloodsport, Ratcatcher 2. And what was the other one? Polka Dot Man.
Yeah. How the fuck could you forget that?
Because I was like, wait,
literally his whole thing.
And there's a great video that IGN put out about. I don't remember the actor's name, unfortunately, if you want to look that up. But this guy has literally been in so many DC properties and DC Comics stuff. Like he was in The Dark Knight. Do you remember whenever Two-Face was threatening the Joker thug?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But like and that's what I think is really great about this review also is just the fact of you kind of just have to break down all the characters. Mm-hmm. Polka Dot Man, his whole thing, it's like, I don't like to kill people, but when I imagine they're my mother, and every single time he kills someone, it's his mother, like with Starro, and it was just like, she was just,
oh God, that was so hilarious.
What the fuck is this movie?
Right.
It's like, where is your mom? Everywhere. And then she's the King Shark.
God. Yeah. I thought Polka Dot Man, even though obviously some of them are really weird or whatever, I thought Polka Dot Man was the most unique for that reason. Like the fact that literally there's so many shots of like when he's dancing with all the girls and suddenly they all turn into his fucking mother, and I'm like,
And
God.
the thing about his power is super believable too. Like
Yeah.
because we've gotten experience with the Flash and Star Labs, it's like, oh, okay, it's an interdimensional virus. Like it brings validity to Polka Dot Man instead of a dumbass villain.
Yeah, definitely.
But also, did you notice Taika Waititi? Speaking of Ratcatcher.
Yep. I saw him. I kept saying Taika Waititi, and Ashley was like, who? And I'm like, Taika Waititi. So finally it gets to that one point where they're like sitting on the tower together, and I'm like, see, that's Taika Waititi. And then like, I still don't know who Taika Waititi. I'm like, it's that guy right there!
Yeah, no, it was the same on my end. I was like, it's Taika Waititi.
Overall, yeah, I mean, I feel like we covered most of the spots. I guess the only thing we'll cover Starro himself or whatever. I couldn't tell, but it looked like all like the Starface things were practical effects. Either that or it was such good CG that I couldn't tell, and that's definitely a good thing.
It might be the CG because it was done by Weta Workshop. So the same people who've done like Lord of the Rings and like, so I mean, they're top tier CGI.
Well, I mean the fact that I couldn't tell, because obviously when they're flying in the air, that's super obvious CG. But as soon as they're actually on the person's face, it's like, okay, I think they did it practically, and I can really, really respect that. Also, like, they established during the whole like reveal scene or whatever, they established essentially like they're all just corpses. So like, do they literally die the moment that they get on, or is there, a transition period? Because as soon as Big Starro does bite the bullet or whatever, everybody just like falls over and is dead. I'm like, super fucked up.
Well, the fact that they actually explained that was really cool, and that's what I think is what I really like about Starro is although he is literally like the last 30 minutes of the movie, they throughout the movie explained the fucking villain, and they kind of did in with Enchantress as far as like who she was, but literally it was just like, brother, we gotta save them, and it's like they literally show, okay, there was this giant starfish in space. The Americans, stupid Americans, captured it unwillingly, and it was like, okay, and throughout the whole movie, when they're in the lab and you see the starfish lifted off the person's face, it's clearly like that face, like they're gone. Yeah. And you can actually kind of see the anatomy and how it works. So it'll latch onto your face, and those little noodles, little noodles. I probably go like
up your nose,
yeah,
up
and like go to your
mouth, yeah. Well, it has to be your nose because your mouth is still available for talking.
But yeah, and then when Starro is dying, and it's like, I was happy just looking out at the stars.
Yeah, just floating around looking at the stars, and I'm like,
oh, there's no good guys here.
Up. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, there are good guys. Like, I do, that's one thing I felt that was kind of the coolest thing, is that these are supposed to be criminals in their own means. Like, obviously, Bloodsport, he was put in there for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet. It's like all these guys are bad guys, but it's like the real bad guy is the government and what they're willing to do. And so I do really like how they're able to kind of pull that together. So yeah, obviously good movie. You've seen it as well because you're watching the spoilers, but yeah, I feel like this shot up to like the top tier. Like even above like Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, this is easily probably the best.
Yeah,
DC.
I mean, it was so well done. It was so well acted. The characters like were so believable, even if it was a giant shark being a dummy. It just everything about it I thought was really cool. So biggest two negatives for me, biggest two negatives for me is the the quote unquote unpredictability. Like another really good example of the quote unquote unpredictability, when they were going through killing everybody in that camp, I'm like, Flag's gonna be fine. And sure enough, Flag was fine. And I'm like, I hate that I predicted that, because it's like, it would have been a good reveal if it wasn't so fucking obvious. So, for me at least. So the predictability of it, by trying to be unpredictable, like, as soon as that first scene happened and everybody died, I felt like, okay, anytime they were building up to something, I could predict it, because I predicted what was not, you know what I mean? Like, I hated that. I hated that about it. But the fact that everything that happened was still extremely enjoyable or whatever, because the conversation that happened when they did get to Flag was a very funny conversation. It was very enjoyable. So that's why I'm one negative. And then the only negative is when the downtime was just like, oh yeah, let's tell her backstories. Even the downtime when like Harley Quinn was off doing her thing, that was 100% enjoyable. I didn't have a problem with it. It was just that manufactured, I want to tell you about my backstory, and I'm going to look off longingly into the window. Or like,
honestly, that I didn't care for, but when they literally punctuated it with a bullet, I was like, okay, all right, that's Harley. You're talking about whenever... Yeah.
Well, and it wasn't even that. It was the song choice. It was just how we were spending our downtime with Harley that I didn't mind. Yeah. It was just, the downtime with the other characters, even though it was character building, it just felt too manufactured. So those are my only negatives. Everything else is completely positive or whatever. So, good job, Gun.
Great film. Yeah. Great fucking film.
So, I was Nick.
And I was Nate.
And you guys, let us know down in the comments below what you guys thought about it. What's your favorite part, favorite character, least favorite part, and maybe least favorite character. Let us know down in the comments below. You guys have a good day.
Finger